I'm not sure if you can hear it. My mom turned on the sprinklers outside to water our lawn. It shouldn't be that annoying of a noise in the background, and it shouldn't last exceedingly long. Um, so, next up for the rulers and leaders, we have Wapol, who is the former king of Drum Island, the Drum Kingdom, and the current king of the evil Black Drum Kingdom. Yeah, I know, he's an idiot. Oh, don't worry, I'm going to harp on how much of an idiot he is. Um, so I also pulled out one of my Grinch shirts because Wapple just strikes me as the type of guy that would attempt to, steal Christmas from everyone or cancel Christmas or allow it to happen and then, yeah, just steal everybody's presents if he could and then just eat them because that's the way Wapple works. So, I just thought I'd point that out there. Just like, it works. Um, I got Chopper back here because he is a rather integral part of some of the things that happen to Wapple. So, um, Tin Plate Wapple, he is the former monarch of the Drum Kingdom. And he is the current monarch, as I said, of the evil Black Drum Kingdom. He is also formerly the captain of the Munch Pirates, or whatever the heck they were called. The Chewing Pirates, I don't remember. He wasn't a pirate for an exceedingly long amount of time, and we will be going over that because he was chased out of his kingdom by Blackbeard, and then he eventually came back and everything. He is married to Kinderella, and I'll go over her a little bit. Wapple is 29 years old. Oh God, Wapple is younger than I am. At the very least, I would like to hope that I at least look better than he does. Um, um, Wapple is 29 years old, so he's 27 years old at the beginning of the story when we first meet him on Drum Island. And he has the Baku Baku no Mi, or the Munch Munch fruit. And it is a paramecia devil fruit that basically allows him to expand his mouth and eat virtually anything, as well as transform his body and replicate different characteristics and things like that and functions of the things that he eats. Within the most recent things in the last 24 hours. And we kind of see this, he tries to take a bite out of the Mary when we first see him. We also see other times where he's trying to, where he eats like a house and he eats other things and he eats trash and like all this other stuff. And according to him, it has a decent amount of flavor depending on what it is that he's eating. So, however it goes. Hey, you gotta find the silver lining wherever you can, I guess, if it comes to eating certain devil fruits. Although admittedly there would be like obviously, and I will go over this a little bit more later on, Wapple does find a very good use for how he uses his devil fruit in regards to, making the Wapple metal and everything by eating all the trash and all of that stuff. So, there are very good applications for this devil fruit, depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. But, most devil fruits have a form of something that would be a very good application of it, even if it doesn't seem like the most powerful devil fruit on paper. In concept, in reality, when using it, depending on who the person is using it, and how creative you are with your ability, you can result in a lot of different interesting things. Wapple at least finds a little bit of some of that. Admittedly, it is via accident. It's by complete coincidence that he figures this out. So in regards to Wapple's personality, he's very selfish, very tyrannical, very, wants, all the money and everything like that. Kept all the doctors for himself, very, spoiled brat type of a prince is what it appears to be, although his father at least seemed to be a bit of a decent king, according to Dalton. Wapple's father, who we never got a name for, seemed to be a decent king, just apparently Wapple did not ever learn that from his father. Of course, sometimes, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. In some cases, the apple rolls all the way downhill and ends up turning into a rotten piece of garbage. And building a different tree that is not a good one. depending on the certain aspects of things. As I said, he's very selfish. I'll go over this more, but he's very childish when he attacks Vivi when she's 10 years old, just to get back at Cobra and everything, because he just wants to have like a full scale war because I guess he thinks it would be fun. I'm like, no, you're an idiot, which is true. Um, you know, he's just not, Wapol is not he's not a smart guy by any means. He also doesn't have really any form of like a heart or anything like that, you know. I kind of like his hippo. His hippo's kind of cute, and I feel somewhat sorry for it, although Wapol does seem to at least care for the hippo to a degree. There's that, and then there's, Kurimarimo and Chess that are two of his flunkies and everything, and he at least, to say the very least about them, at the very least, like, when he got himself situated on, what would become the evil Black Drum Kingdom, he brought Kurimarimo and Chess with him, or at least according to Stampede, he did. I don't know if he actually did that in canon, but if he did, that at least shows that he has some form of like, yeah, I care for these people, at least somewhat to a degree. They were loyal to me. Like, yeah, sure. In regards to his relationships with different people, his relationship with his father, you know, his father just wanted Wapol's well-being and wanted him to be safe and loved and everything like that, and tried to make him into a good ruler, but that did not happen. But he was, Wapol's father was well aware of his son's terrible personality and everything like that. Because, and he's like, he admits to Dalton that it was just like, yes, because I spoiled him and everything. His father wanted to raise him into a kind king, but that did not happen. And then, of course, Wapol is not a good person. And then there's, of course, Cinderella, who is, I think she's the former Miss Universe from like 2 years ago or something like that. And she married him, which is, the equivalency of like having a literal trophy wife. Also, she got to become the queen of the evil Black Drum Kingdom. So there's that. So it's just like, hey, you marry the weird hippo guy with a giant mouth, and well, now you're a queen. I'll go over kind of what I think is going on with the evil Black Drum Kingdom in regards to like how Wapol may have at least learned some lessons, but we'll see. Moving into the history of the character, as I said, Wapol is 29 years old. And when his father died, he became the new king of Drum Island, and that was about 6 years before the beginning of the current storyline. And he expels all of the country's doctors with the exception of his personal doctors, the Ishin 20. And he has those doctors are only allowed to like treat him, and I'm assuming like his, closest, those who are loyal to him, Chess, Kurimarimo, anybody else within the castle that he wants to keep healthy and everything. And he just, Wapol is just, very horrible to his people since they don't have doctors unless they're willing to pay a huge amount of money. And of course, during this time frame, we have Hiraluk and Kureha, and then eventually Chopper along with Hiraluk running around the island. Kureha at least knows what she's doing in regards to medicine. Hiraluk, not so much, good intentions, not the best application. That type of a thing. And 6 years ago, or 6 years before the start of the story, would have been 8 years ago. So that would have been 2 reveries ago. So that would have been, we know that there was a reverie. Well, there's always a reverie every 4 years. And 8 years ago would have been when the last reverie was. And that was when Vivi was a child, and it was probably Wapol's first attendance at the reverie as the ruler. Although, admittedly, given what we've seen from the current reverie, Wapol probably attended the reverie as a child, or at the very least for several years up until his father died, for a couple of times before that. He was probably present at the reverie and probably met like other rulers and princesses and princes and stuff like that. But didn't really end up with clearly he did not, make any good allies in that time frame. But 8 years ago at that reverie, um, I don't remember if they've stated if there's like a specific number on the reverie or not. I don't remember, like the 124th reverie or something like that. I don't remember, because like with Congress, there's like, and the 248th session of Congress has come to a concession or whatever. I don't remember. Um, but we know at that reverie, that was when they were talking quite a bit about Dragon and everything. We get that in one of the different flashbacks that we see where they're discussing Dragon and the Revolutionary Army and everything, and how he is this very big threat to the world, and has been for the past several years, or at the very least appears to be a threat to the world. Again, different sides of the same coin. And what ends up happening is, of course, during this time frame, Wapol is just, being very selfish and everything. And Cobra, Nefeltari Cobra, King of Alabasta, just like scolds Wapol like he's a child. And admittedly, Wapol acts very childish, so that tracks. And Cobra just scolds him and everything, and that's where Wapol just, is just like, no, I don't like those Alabasta people anymore. Not that he probably particularly cared about them to begin with, but Cobra scolds him for not taking the situation more seriously and everything like that, and the fact that there are people that are dying and stuff like that, or people that are put into these precarious situations either with or because of the Revolutionary Army, or at least that's how the world government is trying to spin it at the time. And after part of the reverie was finished, we have it that, well, admittedly at the time, I don't think it was called, in the flashback when we get it at that point in time, I don't know if we call it the reverie or not. It's just called like the Council of Kings is I think what it's referred to as. But then, we find out that, later on it's just like retconned into being the reverie and everything. But what ends up happening is, of course, after that one of those meetings or whatever, Wapol is very angered by this, and he tries to end up getting this reaction out of V, because like, oh, she's a child, she's gonna have a horrible reaction if I attack her or whatever, and whatever, and like he slaps her and knocks her down and everything, and he's expecting there to end up like he wants to go to war with Alabasta. I'm just like, you are so stupid. It's like not thought out plan. There's lots of politicians that don't think out their plans. And he knocks Vivi to the ground, slaps her, and like Vivi, of course, being the awesome child that she was even at that age, just like stands up and apologizes for whatever. She apologizes to Wapol, and for like getting in the way of his hand or whatever, getting in the way of his hand when he slapped her or whatever. And later on, after that, because Wapol's just angry because it didn't work, and he like stomps off in a huff. And Igaram is of course trying to comfort V because she starts crying and everything. And we have it that Dalton sees this, and he sees how brave Vivi had been, and that leaves a very big impression on Dalton, which next week I will be talking about Dalton, so this will be brought up again. This section will be brought up again, and then again when I talk about Cobra and when I talk about Vivi as well, simply because this is a very important incident that happens, very important moment that happens. And Wapol is angry because he didn't get to accomplish his goal, and he just like walks off and like mopes, I guess. And then the year after that is when everything starts happening with Dr. Hirlock. He's, during that time frame, he's like taking in Chopper and everything after Chopper ate the devil fruit. And what ends up happening is, of course, Hirlock is still trying to, treat people. Same thing with Kareha and everything, but they won't come out of hiding. So Wapol hasn't been able to capture them because he's angry that there's doctors. Of course, we also are told that like Drum Island is like known for its doctors, for how good they're supposed to be, how skilled they are. And kind of headcanon since we don't know 100% about everything that's, been part of Kureha's life, I would not be surprised if either Oda just ends up making it that, like, maybe she did not train this specific batch of the Ishin 20 personally, but maybe she trained like their predecessors, because Kureha is like 140 years old, and I don't think we ever get any ages on the other Ishin 20. But if anything, it would be, Kureha may have like taught, like the previous generation of the Ishin 20, and then they taught this current generation of the Ishin 20, or even like the previous generation before that. And therefore, like, a lot of their skills come from her, and then, she just continues to find other medicine or learn more about, perfecting her own skill as a doctor. And then now we know that she is kind of working with the Ishin 20, but that's a little bit more to talk about when I talk about like Dalton. um, and of course, what ends up happening is, Wapol comes up with this, trap to, trick Hiruluk to come to the castle and everything. Oh, just say all the Ishin 20 are sick and everything, and yeah. And then there's 4 kids Wapol. Yeah, my first introduction to Wapol was 4 kids, and I'm just like, Lord. Um, uh, Wap Wapol didn't seem all that Wapol, beyond the stupid accent and the way that he talked, isn't all that different between the actual dub and the 4 kids dub. The Funimation dub and the 4 kids dub. Except I don't think they give him a Russian accent in the Funimation dub. Or if they do, it's not as nearly as prominent as what they do in the 4 kids dub. What they did in the 4 kids dub. But what ends up happening is, of course, Hiruluk gets to the castle, and at this point, he's already dying from the mushroom soup that, Chopper made him, combined with his own illness and everything. And he gets to the castle, and this is where, of course, he's like, you can't kill me and everything. He does this whole speech and everything, which speech from Hiruluk right here. Here you go. Hey, when do you think a person dies? When a bullet from a pistol pierces his heart? No. When he's attacked by an incurable disease? No. When he eats a deadly poisonous mushroom soup? No. A man dies when people forget him. And, of course, this results in, Hiruluk, blowing himself up and everything. And, Dalton is exceedingly moved by what just happened, by what he witnessed, happen with Hiruluk and everything. And then, of course, Chopper shows up and he tries to attack, and, Dalton stops Chopper, so he doesn't actually attack Wapol. And then, of course, we know that later on, Dalton does try to stand up to Wapol, but that doesn't really work because Wapol ends up like eating this like weird cannon thing that he has, and then he like beats Dalton up, even though Dalton has his, buffalo bison form and everything, and he beats him up. And from there, Dalton gets thrown into the dungeon. Actually does get thrown into the dungeon. Not like what happened with Belmir in the 4 kids stuff, but he gets thrown in the actual dungeon. And what ends up happening from there is, of course, several years later, Dalton Hiruluk just continues his, being horrible to his people and everything, and just horrible to the island and everything, and probably attended another reverie somewhere in that time frame, which would line up with that, would line up in that time frame. And after that, a couple of months or a couple of weeks before the story starts, before the Straw Hats arrive on Drum Island, what ends up happening is, of course, this is when the Blackbeard pirates attack. And during this, like 3 or 4 months, or 2 or 3 months or so before the current timeline, that's when the Blackbeard pirates attack. And what ends up happening is, of course, Dalton, or like, not Dalton, Wapol is just, he's just scared. He just leaves with with Chess and Karimarimo and a bunch of his other men, and with, the Ishin 20, and just takes them and leave. And, on his submarine, so, submarine ship thing that he has. And, that's where he ends up for a while and he has to become a pirate. And then, of course, when we get to the actual Drum Island arc, of course, the Straw Hats interact with him. I do remember this scene a bit because it's like someone makes the comment of like no man is an island, and I think it was just the stupid setup in the for kids dub. But I'm like, okay, that's a pun. That's a pun that I could also honestly believe if Oda put in the manga, and then they put it into the actual dub for like because I think they see like chests just like standing in the water, standing out in the middle of the ocean. Bear in mind, chest does not have a devil fruit as far as I am aware. Neither chest nor Kurimarimo have devil fruits. They just have chest is just like a very good archer, I guess, and then Kurimarimo has like weird hairballs, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've watched the Drum Island arc, but they just see chest standing there, and then like the submarine thing comes out of the water, and Wapol comes out, and then he starts trying to eat the Going Merry. He bites off part of it, and I think he like spits it out. And he also asks them if they have like an eternal pose to Drum Island, and they're like, no, they hadn't even heard of it. And of course, we know that Luffy, I think, ends up trying to attack him or something like that because of the fact that like he bit the Going Merry, and like I guess he spits out whatever. I think Wapol tried to eat Luffy, and that just didn't work. I mean, like he's rubbery and everything, so he just like spits him out or whatever. And Wapol just kind of leaves with his crew and everything. After they fish him out of the water so he doesn't drown. And of course, the Straw Hats have to go to Drum Island because, of course, Nami is sick and they need to get to a doctor, and that's where the closest ones are. Even though I think they do ask Wapol if he has a doctor, but he won't give them one of the Ishin 20 to help treat Nami without like some form of like big compensation in the process or whatever. Straw Hats go to the island, and then eventually, they interact with Dalton, and then of course Luffy and Sanji take Nami up the mountain, and then of course up the Drum Rockies, and then eventually Luffy has to carry both Nami and Sanji up the Drum Rocky and everything, and get to where the castle is and everything, which I don't think we ever got a date or like a number about like how old that castle is that's up there. It was like I would assume it's the same castle that like Wapol's father lived in, and then probably also like the same castle that has been there for a while. That would not surprise me, and we know that at this point in time, Kureha and Chopper have like moved into the castle. Along with like some other sets of birds that have moved into the castle as well and made it their home, so that's good. But of course, what ends up happening is, of course, Wapol and his crew also return to Drum Island, and they end up having to, they have to, of course, deal with Dalton first. And that ends up resulting in a fight where I think Dalton does. I don't remember if it's Dalton or if it's Zoro, but someone does like slash Wapol. I know in the manga it's like his head gets chopped off, and then the Ishin 20 just like are able to fix him so quickly. But in the anime they made it that he just gets like this slash marks across his chest, and the Ishin 20 just like stitch him back up really quickly. Which either one is, I guess, rather impressive. Admittedly, having your head chopped off and having it reattached before your brain and the rest of your bodily functions can just like stop is a bit more impressive than fixing a bunch of slash marks on your chest. So there's that. There's that whole thing. And so Dalton and Wapol kind of get to confront each other. And, Dalton has kind of stopped being as afraid of Wapol as he had been. And he does try to stop him. But, of course, between Chess and the others, he ends up, because Chess had been the Minister of Defense. And he just ends up firing a whole bunch of arrows at Dalton. And of course, Dalton gets, struck with the arrows and then buried in part of an avalanche that comes down. And of course, eventually the townspeople and Vivi and Usopp and, Zoro like dig him out and get him all better and all that fun stuff. But that's for more to talk about with Dalton next week. But what we see end up happening is, of course, um, uh, you know, Wapol and his group end up then making their way up to where the castle is. They have to deal with the Lopins along the way, where they try to attack, where the Lopins try to help Luffy because Luffy helped them, which I went over in my Animal Allies for the Straw Hats videos. The Lopins are trying to like hold back, hold back, Wapol as best they can, but it doesn't last very long. And of course, eventually, Wapol and Chess and Kurimarimo, along with, along with the, I think it's Robson. Is that the name of the hippo? Yeah, Robson is, I believe, the name of the hippo. And they end up, up at the castle where, Chopper and Kureha and Nami and Sanji and Luffy are. And of course, Wapol gets angry that there's, this pirate flag hanging above his castle. That's, Hiraluk's Jolly Roger with the cherry blossoms on it and everything. And what ends up happening from there is, of course, this is where like the big fight starts going on. Chopper tries to fight against Wapol, and doesn't go super well for Chopper. But I mean, like if current level Chopper fought against Wapol, even like current level Wapol, I'm quite certain that Chopper would win very easily. Just because Chopper has gotten so much stronger, and I don't think that Wapol has probably spent quite as much time on his like actual physical training and everything like that. Since Wapol really does, I don't know why I'm yawning so much. I kept yawning a whole lot last night and I slept fine, so I don't know why I keep yawning so much, so I apologize for that. But the thing is that part of the way that Wapol fights is he very much relies on, his devil fruit for like what he can eat in order to like determine what he can, have as powers. And he like sends Kurimarimo and Chesed to fight, and Sanji tries to fight, and then he gets just like knocked down by Kureha, and just like she just like sits on him. It's just like, you're in no condition to fight. Let Chopper do it. And Chopper starts fighting against Kurimarimo and Chess, and then I know at some point in time, Wapol just grabs them, chews them, and then turns them into Chess Marimo, which is a disturbing thing. Does that, and then Chopper does end up defeating them, if I remember correctly, by using his rumble balls. In regards to like, I think it's like his brain point and then arm point, I think he uses, to take down Chess Marimo and knock them out. And of course, just like with other things with Wapol's power, eventually, they will separate back into their regular, separate forms. Of course, during this time frame, stuff is happening with Luffy, where Wapol keeps trying to attack the flag, and Luffy keeps, of course, running, preventing the flag from being knocked down and everything, and all of that other stuff. Wapol, of course, tries to do his slim up Wapol, which, I mean, like, that's a decent power of the devil fruit. It's just like, I'm just going to make myself slim. Okay, I'm slim now. I'm like, hey, take advantages where you can in that regard. So there's that. And we know that Wapol tries to get into the castle because he's trying to get to this big cannon, this Royal Drum Crown 7-shot blicking cannon, I guess, is what he's trying to get to. And it doesn't work because there's like birds inside of it, so the cannon is just no longer functioning. And Luffy then of course uses his gum 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 no bow gun technique, Gum Gum bazooka as well, to like capture Wapol and then just like fire him off into the unknown. Fire him off way off into, I think West Blue is where he ends up. Out of the Grand Line. I think he gets thrown into the West Blue, and that's where the evil Black Drum Kingdom is, if I remember correctly. But my geography for the One Piece world is not as good as I want it to be. And, so Wapol is defeated and he's sent off. And of course, he even tried to Wapol even tried to convince Luffy to just don't do this, I'll reward you, I'll make you like vice king of Drum Island, and Luffy has no interest in that and just like bing, bye bye. He just goes flying. Eventually we do get the cover page story of Wapol's omnivorous hurrah, which of course just results in Wapol going through all this trials and tribulations of ending up on this random island, and then he ends up eating lamps and benches and all of this other stuff because he's homeless and hungry and nobody cares, and he just starts terrorizing the populace, and then he ends up getting shuffled off to shuffled off to the town dump or whatever, the city dump, and he eventually ends up just eating what's there. And then of course eventually this results in he gets a companion, and that is a little dog, which he actually seems to treat the dog well, so it's just okay, he gets points for that, but not a lot of them. And eventually he ends up making all of these there's a joke where he tries to be a little match girl, where he's trying to sell matches, and that doesn't go well. And then there's other stuff that he tries to do, and he ends up living under a bridge at one point in time. And then of course, because he has no money, he has to eat the garbage and everything that's scattered all around him. And eventually he ends up using his Baku Bako factory technique, where he ends up making all of these little toys and everything like that. And of course all the kids on the island end up really liking the toys. So one of them takes it to his father or whatever, and shows it to his dad, and his dad looked over and was like, "Oh my god, this is an amazing thing. This metal is amazing." And of course it's by complete sheer luck. It's buggy level of failing up. Wapol ends up getting, business deal after business deal after business deal, just going up, and his, toy factory, Wapol's toy factory, whatever it is that he has, ends up just making him so much money that eventually he just ends up, I guess, getting made the king of the island, because of his Wapol metal and everything like that. And between the toys and then between just being able to make the Wapol metal, that I guess was enough to, get him enough money type of a thing, I guess. And I guess he bought the country, I guess. I mean, there's rumors that with Rome that they would sell whoever the emperor was to whoever would pay the most, type of a thing, depending on certain circumstances. There's references of that with popes as well, for certain ones. So that's not surprising. But Wapol ends up becoming the king of the island, and then he ends up marrying Miss Universe Cinderella, and then of course he has the dog, and it's just, this is what he does. He has his own company, and he's the king, and it's literally called the Evil Black Drum Kingdom. And then of course, that's what we get during the cover page story. And then, for 2 years within the time frame of the manga is when, we see him again during the Fishman Island saga, when he's getting ready to head off for the reverie and everything, and he's he's been acknowledged as this new kingdom. And it was probably what it's implying is that whatever the previous setup for the Evil Black Drum Kingdom was, they did not have enough money probably to pay the Heavenly Tributor. If they did have enough money to pay the Heavenly Tribute, they were not a big enough contributor to be allowed to be invited to the reverie. But now that Wapol is in charge, and they have all this other income and everything like that, Wapol, probably in order to because he wants to like, he's probably read that, Drum Island is now the Sakura Kingdom and everything. And he's like, I need to find out what's going on with this. I need to go and like rub it in, however many people's faces from there that I am still successful and everything. So that's probably why he's, willing to still do this and, goes to Reverie. That's why he goes to Reverie probably in the first place. And then when we get to Reverie during the Reverie arc and everything, he's headed off there and everything with like him and his wife and their weird clothes and everything and their dog. And then we get to Reverie itself, where Wapol ends up being face to face with Dalton and Vivi and Kureha and everything. And, he takes Cinderella there with him. Admittedly, Wapol does seem to treat his wife rather well from at least the little bits of interaction that I have, but she also has this very vain personality to begin with as well, so they fit each other very well in that regard. Also, Wapol does not look like he owns a brush because his hair is just like all over the place, type of a thing. So there's that. But we know that Wapol tries to, he tries to make trouble against Vivi, and he tries to make trouble against Dalton and Kureha, and none of it works because like they're all, Vivi does get angry at him, but she like gets calmed down a little bit by like Kureha and stuff. I had a comparison that I wanted to make that was like, Wapol at this point in time kind of reminds me of like this bully that like was like the big honcho through like out, the end of elementary school and into middle school, and that everybody was afraid of and stuff, for that, even if people tried to stand up to him, nothing ever happened. And eventually, like maybe like the last 2 years, like the year before middle school ends, he has to move away, and then he's not back until like maybe like junior or senior year of high school, and he gets back to high school, and like everybody else has just kind of like realized while he was gone that it was like he wasn't really all that threatening. No, he was just very loud and rude. And like they've just gotten smarter and realized that Wapol is just an idiot, that the bully's just an idiot. And when he gets back, he's just like, hey, why aren't you all scared of me anymore? And he's got like, he does have like the girlfriend, but it's kind of like the equivalency of like, well, I have a girlfriend, but she lives in Canada, and that's why you can't meet her. But, he actually has the girlfriend, and like Dalton does not have any sympathy for Wapol whatsoever anymore. Dalton is not scared of Wapol for the last 2 years since everything's been going on with, with the Sakura Kingdom. Dalton has just been probably gaining a lot more confidence and everything like that, given, how much his people actually very much care for him and how much he cares for them. And, having Kureha as like an advisor and everything. And, so Dalton's probably gotten a lot more confident in that regard. And eventually, Dalton, like, I remember Dalton's just looking at Wapol and he's like, well, we're equals now because we're both kings and we're both here. So I have no reason to bow to you, and I have no reason to be scared of you. And that kind of like freaks Wapol out. But like, yeah, it's like the equivalent of like the bully coming back and him just being like, why isn't anybody scared of me anymore? And like people are just more willing to ignore him now. And it's just like, yeah, he's not that threatening anymore. Wapol's like the kid that went through the growth spurt. Now he's like the cool kid in class, but he's actually like a really, still the really nice person he used to be, type of a thing. Vivi, of course, gets angry at Wapol because Wapol. We do see that during what happens with when Charlo shows up and tries to take Shirahoshi by force, that Wapol is just very frightened and is just like trying to like keep his distance from it and everything. And he's very surprised when, Milzigard comes up and, smacks Charlo with the, metal mallet that he has. And then, of course, later when they sit down for the conference, at the big round table and everything for the 50 kings to all get together, for the 50 rulers to all get together, Wapol just, is, very wickedly grinning at Dalton for whatever reason. There's not really too much else there. I am going to point out in Stampede, just because, Stampede was this, 20-year celebration of, One Piece and everything like that for, like, the anime. that yes, Wapol and Chess and Kurimarimo and Wapol's weird brother from like the alternate retelling of Drum Island with Frankie and Robin being there, which makes no sense, but it's their movie is there. I do not remember the name of his brother, and I do not care. It's like Mushroom something or other. And so there's that, and like they're part of the trying to get through the treasure at like the Pirate Paradise Island Festival thing, and his wife's there with them, and it just he's just there. He's meant to be a cameo and meant to be like comic relief of like getting yelled at by Nami because he's incompetent. Him and Foxy are there for that very same reason, because it's a references to previous arcs and stuff like that. So there's all that that happens. But then now, in regards to stuff that we are learning about the Reverie, in regards to stuff that we are learning about what has happened, stuff that we had rumors about post Reverie, and now we're actually getting like the full flashback of things in regards to Wapol and things like that. We know that Wapol's current location is with Vivi and Morgan's at the World Economy newspaper, that they're there. It's also, I think it stated earlier on that at some point at the Reverie that Wapol had been like, feeding information to Morgan's, so that way Morgan's would be able to print certain things in the newspaper, like gossip and things like that. He was being like an informant, which makes perfect sense. From the so side note here, from the basic things that I've seen from the spoilers for this week's chapter of One Piece, there's stuff that could imply about Wapol, but I'm not really all that interested in wanting to put it in the video yet because I don't know exactly how all of it goes. We know that it appears from what we saw in the previous chapters that it appears that Wapol probably did see Eam or something along those lines, that he saw what he should not have seen, because that's the way that Wapol is acting. Well, now Vivi is acting all calm and cool and everything. Now that she's kind of like gotten herself together after, losing her father and all of that. So there's that. But there's not really too much else that we've seen at the moment. We just know that that's his current location, is with Vivi and Morgan's and the giant teapot newspaper headquarters, which I just love. I'm sorry, I love that. Thank you, Morgans. That is an adorable setup. So there's that, but there's not too much else. He is worried about the world government finding out their location and everything by being like bugged by the Den Mushi and everything. So there's that thing that he's terrified about, which pretty much lines up for what we know about, Wapol in regards to him being him just being, a coward. But I'm quite certain that if I don't know what's going to happen with Wapol. I don't know if he's going to, I don't really want to do too much speculation, because it's like, well, at some point in time, he was obviously, something happened in regards to him having to help or being forced into help getting, Vivi to safety in the, with Morgan's and everything, that was like the safest place for her to go. Although I would find it exceedingly entertaining if Wapol ends up actually maybe not being with the Straw Hats when they find out what happened to what happened in the Void Century, but I also am quite certain that Morgans would want to print and reveal to the world what happened in the Void Century. So it's if Morgan somehow ends up finding out about that stuff, either he's told by someone, or Vivi's we're gonna tell Morgans, but that's more of a Morgans concept. But Wapol being there, witnessing, finding out what the Void Century was and what happened, the true history of the world. Well, that would be very, very hilarious, because it's this man has no concept and he does not care. But also, I could also picture Wapol in the corner just going, la 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 la, I'm not listening. I just so picture Wapol trying to do that. He's nope, I don't want to go in there. Oh, there could be treasure. Damn it. It follows them in. And it's just Robin's reading off everything, and Wapol's just no, no, no. I don't want to know this. I don't want to know this. I don't want to die. Type of a thing. So there's all of that concept there, for what could happen with Wapol, but I don't know. Maybe Wapol will get captured. I honestly do not care if Wapol lives or dies. I do not care in the slightest. Wapol is just one of those characters, and I'm like, I do not care what happens to you anymore. You have served your purpose. Unless you just want to give Frankie a ton of Wapol metal, I have no use for you, type of a thing. So there's that. Although, side note, and I know that like Oda has stated that like Frankie's best devil fruit for him would be like baby Five's Buki Buki no Mi, but admittedly, also Frankie having like the Baku Baku no Mi, the Chop Chop for the Chomp Chomp fruit, not Chop Chop. That's a bug he has. Having Wapol's devil fruit would also be good because Frankie would be able to use that to make his own versions of like the Wapol metal, but it would be like Frankie metal because like I'm quite certain he would figure out some of that and some of that information pretty quickly. Also, Frankie is around Luffy and Chopper who have both dealt with Wapol. And they've both seen what Wapol is capable of doing in regards to what his devil fruit can do. So they would already be able to give Frankie like a heads up on that. So that would be an interesting thing for like Frankie having that devil fruit. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be an interesting thing. So that's what I have. Next week will be about Dalton and the his role as king of the Sakura Kingdom, the Cherry Blossom Kingdom on Drum Island. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.